Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Podcast. Shuffled the lineup because we hadn't had Big B on in a while. And we were suffering, Gills and I, from a Big B shortage. It's like a vitamin. We had Big B deficiency, and we had to bring him on. So here he is. He's with us.
I went to the doctor, and they said I had Big B withdrawal symptoms, for whatever that's worth.
I don't. Did it manifest
My
itself?
wife never has those symptoms. She doesn't get, she doesn't get the symptoms. She could use some time without Big B around, but she doesn't get those symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, it could manifest itself as gout. And I'm so happy that Ryan Gilbert gets to experience the joy of that.
I'm old, officially.
God, it sucks.
Yeah,
It's awful.
Sucks so bad. This podcast, though, won't suck. And there's going to be 5 questions from Wabash Station, and then we'll go into VIP mode, and we'll have that. And it's all going to make a joyous Thursday for everyone. I don't know about that. I might have gotten carried away. Let's get rolling here. Let's quit messing around. Here we go. From Domercat. How good of a season would it take for Avery to go pro next year, and how would that potentially translate to football victories? Big B, why don't you try this one?
Okay. I would say, I mean, obviously it's going to depend on what we do, but I would say he needs to be in the 3,500 to 3,900 yard passing range, get close to 30 touchdowns passing, and keep the interceptions under 10. I would say probably under 8, somewhere around there. And then also throw in another 800-900 yards rushing. He does that. Number one, if he does that, we're talking about, first of all, Heisman talk. K-State's going to be really good if he does that. And another thing is we're going to be talking about a really high draft pick for him, because it would mean he took a huge step forward, which I think a lot of people outside of Kansas State fans believe that Avery Johnson's going to take. That's some of the stuff that I've been hearing about him, is that they believe he's going to take a big step forward from what he was last year. I mean, it's tough, coming in as a true sophomore, not starting at all, and then all of a sudden being thrust into expectations. People forget that these guys are kids, man, and it takes a little time. Everybody just immediately isn't the greatest quarterback that's ever stepped on a football field from day one. It just doesn't happen that way. But I think that's a great question, number one. But I think those are the type of numbers for him to go pro. You're going to need to see something like that.
Gills?
Yeah, if you look at the NFL, Big B, I know you cover this a lot with your Steelers stuff. People think of, Lamar Jackson and, Jalen Hurts, these guys that can run the football. They're still great at passing the football. You're not going to cut it in the NFL if you can't throw the ball. And Avery Johnson's rushing, I think you could easily convince one of those 32 teams at the next level that's going to translate. That athleticism, that speed, that's going to be there. Avery Johnson last season showed a lot more bad than good, just in terms of what's going to translate to the NFL. Those 50-yard bomb at Colorado to Jace Brown to win the game. That's an NFL type throw. But the turnovers, the misfires, maybe the bad decisions from Avery Johnson, unfortunately, those kind of outweighed those NFL type throws. So you're going to have to see a much better passer out of Avery Johnson next season if those NFL dreams are going to come into fruition. Now, in terms of his legs, I think he's already there, but there's also a lot of guys out there in college football who are as physically gifted on the ground as Avery. It's going to come down to what he can do with his arm. Now, I'm not trying to be too critical of him here, but bottom line is it's tough to make an NFL starting spot, the quarterback position. You've got to clean up some of those throwing mistakes.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was going to say is some of those things, you mentioned Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. You think about in college, the offenses that they were in. I mean, Bobby Petrino at Louisville and Lincoln Riley, when Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma, they will get you prepared to play in the National Football League. Now, granted, they did a lot of things with their legs as well, but those two type of offenses get you prepared to not just play, to throw the ball, be accurate, because You have to anticipate throws. You have to throw guys open. It's a lot of things that they do in those offenses. And even then, those two guys weren't ready immediately in the National Football League to play, but they got there. But those are the type of things that I think a lot of people are going to look for Avery to take a step forward, throwing the ball over the middle. Now, that could be a lot of schematics as far as that's concerned, but throwing it over the middle, anticipate throws, not waiting for guys to get open and then throwing the football. Because, again, you try to do that in the National Football League and it's an interception. You have to anticipate where guys are going to be. And the quicker you can do that in college, the better off you're going to be, because it's just you're a better quarterback at that point, and you're going to make everybody else around you better. You'll just make the entire offense better if he can take that next step in development.
Big B, he's made remarkable progress physically in the offseason. He's sculpted himself pretty well. But what are your thoughts on his size and ability to hold up in the NFL?
I mean, if he's bigger, he'll be fine. But look, Lamar Jackson's not a big guy, and that's what, everybody talks about is like Lamar Jackson is not running around at 215 pounds or anything like that. He got bigger 1 year, and it cost him because he wasn't as elusive as what he normally was. Well, he immediately cut those pounds off. He put on 15 pounds. He's like, nope, that's not me. I'm not going to placate to what everybody is saying about me. I'm going to be me. And went back out there, and he had his best statistical year this past season when he lost the 15 pounds, because he's like, look, I'm not the biggest guy out there. But you ever see Lamar Jackson like take a big shot? Like, have you ever seen him just get his clock cleaned out there? No, because number one, he's elusive. He understands where pressure is coming from, obviously, unless it's from his backside where he just can't see it. But other than that, even when he runs the football, like Lamar Jackson doesn't take these big shots from linebackers and safeties. You have to understand and know what you're doing. Avery, as long as he does that, he'll be fine. He will absolutely be fine. He can hold up to that. You just have to be smart. You can't try to run over everybody, and Lamar Jackson's not trying to run over everybody, so you can't do that, because when you do, here's a guy that does in the NFL. Think Anthony Richardson from the Colts. He learned that early on in his rookie year. He tried to run over a safety, and he blew his shoulder out 4 games in, and he didn't play the rest of the year. You just can't do that in the National Football League. Guys are too big and too fast. You're not going to run away from everybody, and you're definitely not going to run through people. And that's not your job as a quarterback anyway. That is not your job.
I'm really glad we had Big B on, because that was a really comprehensive answer. And I would tend to agree. What would get him to go to the pros after this season? Probably being in that Heisman top 5. Maybe you don't get invited to New York, but you're really close and you're going to get votes. Maybe that does it. And I guess with that in mind, you kind of compare him a little bit to Shedeur Sanders and the numbers he put up, although there was some issues there with sacks and other things. But this kid's really talented. He's going to be better, but he also recognizes there's holes in his game he's got to correct. He's got to be faster reading those defenses. And, he's got to be more efficient over the middle and cut down those mistakes. But if he starts ratcheting it up, and, part of it is he's supposedly, this will be a topic of a daily delivery this week, got better receivers. Everyone's raving about these receivers, and that will make your quarterback look a lot better. Next one up is from my guy, I Like Pickles, Cat. It's been alleged Texas Tech has $40 million invested in their football roster. Have you heard anything similar? If that's true, what are your thoughts? I have heard that number. I don't know if that number is accurate. There's no way to know. But they did have a rancher sell out for about $1 billion and decide to retire young. Smart move. Who's chipped in a lot of money. It's made a big difference. This was the year to do it, because this chaotic NIL is going to go away. And it's going to be the rev share. There'll be still some NIL, but it won't be show up on campus and get $1 million. It's going to be show up, pitch these, for this car company or these vitamins or whatever. You're going to truly have to
be Fitz.
Yeah, well, exactly what it was supposed to be. And the NCAA fell asleep and just didn't do it. And there's a whole process now for approving those deals. But I think Tech's going to be really good. And I think we've got a comparison here later on about football, basketball cases. Is that the VIP question, Gills? But it, I'm not sold you can buy a roster. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. Maybe that's basketball bias, but I'm still not sure you can buy all your stars, your studs, your roster, and have that many new parts. But if you can, Tech's going to prove it true. They're going to be really good then.
Like, I don't think you can buy all of them. I think you can buy some. Ohio State proved that this past year.
Pieces,
But you have to have a core base of guys that are in your program. I mean, you can fill in pieces. And even if those pieces are 7 or 8 pieces that you're filling in, well, there's 22 guys, offense and defense, that start on a football team. So you can fill in those pieces, but the majority of the guys that you're going to have on your football team or out there playing are core pieces that have been around there. Whether the $40 million is true or not, okay, fine. But when you think about $40 million, you would think, well, a lot of that has to do with the quarterback. Well, they already had a quarterback there, and a pretty good quarterback at Texas Tech. Did they just give him more money, or did you go out and try to find other pieces to that? Because I can tell you this. First of all, I would love for somebody to pay a left guard $2 million. I would absolutely love for somebody to do that, preferably if they wore the number 73. That'd be great. But I'm guessing they're not paying a left guard $2 million to come and play at Texas Tech or anywhere else for that matter. Not that those guys aren't important. I'm not saying that, but you're not paying that guy that kind of money. That's just not how this thing works. So whether it's $40 million or not, look, Tech had the talent 2 years ago to be in the Big 12 championship game and fell on its face. So the talent's one thing. Now you got to coach it up. And we talk about Joey McGuire being a good coach. Well, show us. I'm tired of hearing about it. It's time for you to show us. And if the roster's as deep as what they say, we'll see. But again, you got to coach it, just like you said, Fitz. And you can't buy 15 starters in football and think that your team is going to be, it just doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work. We haven't seen it work, and I don't think it's going to work this year either.
Gills?
Only thing that would really concern me, and it's pretty obvious, and I don't know the ins and outs of maybe the recruitment battles that they had to get in with some of these transfers, but if you're getting into a bidding war for a player and they just want money or they just want to go to the school that's going to offer them the most, you're obviously going to run the risk of some problems in your locker room and keeping guys bought in, their motives, right? So you can get, talent is one thing, getting guys that want to work hard and be the best every single day on and off the field, right? That there's something to be said for a player like that as well. So I know that's true for basketball and football, all you name it, but you want to get players that are going to be locked in, bought in. And if you get somebody that's only there for the money, you run that risk. And again, I don't know the players, the process there for Texas Tech. That's just more of a general kind of thought, but you run that risk.
You sure do. Here's another one from KSU Royals. Cat, what is the most you would spend on a dude in football this year and basketball? I think one of the things people don't understand, guys, is that these markets are much different. Basketball is much more volatile. There's more money over there per player. And if there's more money as a percentage of roster, that means you can sink more money into one guy. But that $2 million number that was floated with Coleman Hawkins, I think you got to be careful in those numbers. Now, we've heard $4 million for some players out there. I would just be really careful that they're the right people and they're really worth it. I don't know what they paid for Nate Johnson out of Akron, but I'm sure it was a good number because he was wanted, he was desired, and they paid whatever they needed to pay to get him. At some point, you got to do that. If the market dictates that, like anything else, and if there's a shortage of frontline stud players in basketball, they're going to get a lot of money, just like Coleman Hawkins did late in the cycle. Football's different, and there's really no compare. I can't give you a number in football because they don't do that. They don't go looking for a dude. At least they haven't yet. Their interest is in making sure their dudes that they have don't leave, and they've been very successful. Now, the portal's not closed yet for the spring, but we're pretty confident guys like Dylan Edwards and Avery Johnson and Cheedy, who has had money thrown at him. Those type of guys will be back. And they've done a great job of playing defense with their NIL and now rev share with their roster. And I think that's a real key to possible success. It's the antithesis of what Texas Tech is doing.
I mean, so I would focus less on the dollar amount, right? The money, and I'd focus more on the percentage of your NIL purse or your roster, salary cap, right? Big B, Fitz, you can just go ahead and stop listening to me here for the next minute or so. But like TJ Watt, that's a hot topic right now. The NFL salary cap keeps going up and up and up. So it's not about how much you're going to be giving him for a potential extension, right? It's how much of your salary cap is he taking. And that, if he's taking less than what his previous contract was, then why does it matter at all, right? So your best player, whoever that may be, Avery Johnson, whoever's the number one guy, is that 10%, 15%, I don't know, 20%. If you want to really go swinging for a guy, you can't break the bank. And, that's probably a Clint Brown question, Fitz, right?
Mm-hmm.
With maybe handling that. But I would focus, because how much you have this year and how much you have next year, assuming this is going to plan, like you mentioned, Fitz, it's going to change. It's going to shrink. So you want to keep that, obviously, keep that in check. So, and I know that maybe you're not going to be just paying guys in the future to come to your program. So maybe that's a little misleading, but yeah, you want to make sure that one guy isn't just killing the rest of your roster.
Yeah. I think that's definitely, as far as college is concerned, it's kind of what you said, Gills, the NFL and baseball and basketball, the revenue sharing, that salary cap number just keeps going up and up and up. So as long as the total number, as far as the percentage that they're getting in the cap, doesn't matter. But since we're talking about college, I mean, you don't want to be giving one guy 50% of what you have, and then you have to sprinkle out the rest. Now, the one thing that I don't worry about, a lot of people talk about this, is because they worry about, well, what about the locker room? I'm like, we got to get past that part, because, and I say this all the time, and I'll continue to say it, there's haves and there's have-nots in this world. People are going to have, since the beginning of time, somebody's had more money than somebody else. That's just the way it works. And if they can figure that out in NFL and in NBA and NHL and Major League Baseball, if they can figure it out in those locker rooms where the testosterone is through the roof at all times and the egos are at an all-time high, you should be able to figure that out in college as well. Look, it's just the way that the world works. We don't have to like it, but it's just the way that it is. But as far as how much is too much, I don't know. I think that you have to have certain percentages based on a guy and make sure you're doing it right. And like you said, Fitz, talking about the $2 million for Coleman Hawkins, who, first of all, it's not too much if you're him. You can't tell him that it was too much to pay him. So if you were asking him, he's going to say it wasn't enough. Okay, great. But when you're talking about a basketball roster and a basketball team, you have to figure that out, what's best for everybody, so we can put the best product out there.
Yeah, you made a great point about the locker room. And I think that was a bigger problem when NIL was new.
Yeah.
And the players honestly didn't understand it. They just saw it as money being given to people. And I think now they have a better concept of what's going on. And certainly in a couple years, if it's still around, and it will be in some form, that the guys in that locker room will have only played college football in the NIL era. And it'll be very normal to have inequities in how much people are getting paid. So I think that the struggle with that will certainly go down as time moves on with these players getting exposed to it. You're watching the PowerCat podcast or listening to it from GoPowercat.com. And of course, we will have a VIP question in a separate podcast, a separate file for our subscribers at GoPowercat. Make sure you're checking out the specials. We just had one close up shop, and go check it out. If you're not subscribing, see what the current deal is and join us, please. It's going to be a fun season. Next one up, KSU CB. What's it going to take for this insanity that is now college football to end? Congress. Honestly, Congress and all parties to realize it's never going to be the same. And if that means collective bargaining because the players are unionized, so be it. If that means bringing on players as employees, which athletic departments really don't want, and so be it. I don't know why they can't be contract labor, but which is essentially what they are. But whatever kind of settles this down is going to have to come through the legal system, because the courts now have basically made it, just intolerable. They basically anything the NCAA wants to do, they say you can't do it, and you've got to have rules no matter what your organizations are. But without it being codified into some kind of law by Congress, I don't see this stopping. Because now that the NCAA has been neutered, guys, they're scared to do anything. They're afraid going to court is just a waste of money because they'll lose. And I understand that to a degree, but when it's still illegal to just flat out pay players, you can't ignore it. The courts haven't shot that down, but yet they sit it out and don't do anything. But this is here to stay, folks. This is not going anywhere. We need to adapt as much as anything.
Yeah, no, it's not going anywhere
No.
Anytime soon. Not at all. It's not going away. But the problem that I see from my perspective is the NCAA, you're right. They're afraid to pass any rules whatsoever. But part of it is because athletic directors and presidents don't get on the same page. If they got, first of all, there's no judge out there that's going to shoot down that you have to sign a contract to be able to receive this money. No judge is going to shoot that down if they put that into law. They're not going to overcome that. They're going to say, yeah, that makes sense. Great. Well, the problem is that athletic directors and presidents of schools that have a ton of money don't necessarily want to do that because they can go and outbid some other people for good players that maybe don't have as much money. So they don't want people to have these contracts, or they want to be able to get rid of a guy if, hey, we gave him $2 million and 1 year, and you know what? He wasn't worth it. We want this guy out of the program so we can go get somebody else. Until they get on the same page, it's like you said, Congress will have to step in and make them get on the same page. Because again, there's nothing wrong with being employees. Okay. If Ryan Gilbert, the student, wanted to work at the athletic department, guess what? He's an employee, and you can do the exact same thing. For instance, if I playing football, if you know what, and my part-time job was working at the athletic department because I needed money, I'm an employee. You can do the same thing, make guys sign contracts. It's really not that difficult to figure out. And that's when the madness will end. Now, when all of that happens, I don't know. If I had a crystal ball, I promise you I'd tell you, because it's mind-numbing. But the fix isn't that difficult. It really isn't. Just make everybody an employee, make them sign contracts. You got to go to school, can't get arrested. Pretty simple stuff, basic stuff that you put in there, and you got to do it for 2 years. So you can't go pro, especially football. It's 3 years. It's going to be, but you can't keep somebody for 3 years. I think that's going a little overboard, because now you're not allowing them to transfer, and you're never going to be able to agree on that. But for 2 years, you can. And say, hey, you got to be here your freshman and sophomore year if you want this money. Now, if you don't, by all means, don't sign it, and you can go about your way and do what you do. But if you do want this, you got to be here for at least 2 years. Then you can transfer, and we go from there. And then they have buyouts, attach buyout to it, just like coaches. Coaches have buyouts to their contracts. Hey, if I go here, I'm making $100,000 and my buyout's $100,000. The school that I go to has to pay it. Well, technically, the player has to pay it. And what they do is, hey, I'm at school XYZ. I have $100,000 buyout. I need to be able to get $200,000 from you, or $250,000, because I got $100,000 that I had to pay my old school. It's the way it works, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Bigby, I don't disagree one bit. I mean, that's great stuff, but I have to remember this is the NCAA we're dealing with. So for the insanity that is now college athletics to end, I think if you're a fan, you just got to maybe accept or adapt to this and just kind of understand that it's going to be chaotic. And until you can come to terms with that, it's never going to end. But if you can just, you watch Kansas State, who, no matter who's paying for your players or how much they're getting paid or who's playing, as long as you can kind of just shove it aside and accept it a little bit, then you'll find some comfort there. But it's never going to truly end because guys, we're dealing with the NCAA here.
It's the truth, man. It's the truth.
My thing is, let me just ask this, and I'll pose this to you two guys. Look, growing up, obviously, we loved making the connection with the players because they came in, they were going to be there for at least 3 years. They came in, yada, 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 and we got to know them a little bit. But since that's not the case now, do we really care who the guy is that's playing for our football or basketball team if they're winning? Like, do we care, number one, where they came from? Do we care who it is? And that's my whole thing I've tried to get across to fans is just root for your team. Who cares who it is? If you win, does it matter who that person actually is? Because chances are you don't know them, so you don't get any satisfaction out of that. Number two, all you care about is your team winning. And I say this on my Steelers Almighty channel all the time about quarterback. It could be a field mouse out there running quarterback for us. If he could help us win a college football playoff, who cares? And that's what my point to fans is. I get it. Trust me, I totally understand wanting to make that connection, but that's no longer possible. That's not what exists right now. So just root for your team and just know it's going to be different people every year. That's what's going to happen. And you just deal with it and just hope that your team that your coaches can put together a really good roster and you guys can win. That's it. They make a ton of money to put these rosters together. Let them work. Let them do it.
On the flip side of that, though, real quick, Fitz, if you're losing with a bunch of newcomers, fans can get very frustrated. Whereas Will Howard's freshman year, when he kind of got thrown into the fire, those struggles were ugly. You can't deny that, but they meant something. They paid dividends to a Big 12 title years later. You know, you go to basketball with Barry Dean and Cam's freshman year, their struggles, their 5-win season in year number 1 led to an Elite 8 run in a Big 12 championship. Whereas you go back to this past basketball season, all 5 starters are now gone on a sub 500 team. So the lows, there's nothing promising from the lows nowadays. Whereas way back when, 5 years ago, the lows, you would hope that you would have guys that you could follow and have get better. But I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Big B, but you know, there are two sides of the argument there. When you're losing, right? When you're winning, it doesn't matter.
You know what? The guys, when they're winning, they leave too. You know, you look at the St. John's team this year, guys are leaving. Florida won the national championship, guys are leaving. You know, the teams that look at that UConn team that went back to back. You remember what I can't even remember what Danny Hurley said. He was like, half the team is going to leave and we're about to win a national championship. And guess what happened? Half the team left. So whether you're winning or losing, you're going to lose players. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I really don't, which is crazy to think that you think, hey, man, I'm on a winning team. Why am I leaving? But they do. It doesn't matter. So you got to deal with it and just root for your squad and move on. And hope that your coaching staff puts together a good team. Because like I said, they get paid a lot of money. And I know the argument, well, they didn't sign up for this. Well, you're in it now. And if you don't want to be, you don't have to be. Nobody's holding, a gun to your head saying you have to coach and make millions of dollars at playing or coaching college basketball. Nobody says that to you.
Yeah. Look at Jay Wright. Look at Nick Saban.
Yeah.
They got out. Exactly.
Yep. Well, let me ask you guys this, Gills in particular. What do you think fans found more satisfying, or was one more satisfying than the other? The Elite 8 in Jerome Tang's first year, or the Elite 8 under Bruce Weber? You had established players with Weber and almost an entirely new roster with Tang, but didn't see 1 ounce of difference in how the fans treated that. And most of your roster was new. Now, when things have gone bad, and you've spent money and it's still gone bad, that gives the fans that little extra frustration. You know, we thought we were buying a good team, and we don't even have that. So that's kind of an added layer. But I think if you're good, you're good, as Big B said. And there's got to be a way to reward players staying. And I don't know what that is. I mean, I've got an idea. I'm going to share it later on, but I don't know if it's tangible in any way until you can't just call up someone and say, come to my program. I'm going to give you this much money through an agent or whomever is your representative. As soon as that ends, this craziness stops. It's got to get there. And that's the only way to do that truly is contracts and employment. I don't want the athletic departments around the country bitching when part of the solution is in their hands and they don't want it. And I know why they don't want it. They don't want everything that goes with it, retirement and all that stuff. But it's just the way it is. They need to get this under control as best they can. And until the NCAA is free to do so, has the steel behind it to enforce rules, we're just going to see more chaos. Stinks. Sucks. One final one here from Contra Cat. Will the Kansas High School walk-on program be replaced with some targeted in-state transfers? This is a great question. And none of us know how that's going to go. Joe Klannerman pointed out at Wednesday's press conference, without that, Brendan Mott would never have been at K-State. Maybe Austin Moore too. I don't think Felix, he didn't mention Felix, but based on the pictures of him getting his scholarship out of high school, that wasn't ever going to happen at 105. They're going to have to find a way to work around it. Now, you still have to give 85, no, that's not right. You don't have to give 85. You can give whatever number you have, but now the ceiling is 105, not 85. But you don't have to give 105. Like right now, if you wanted to give 65, you could. You're an idiot, but you could. And I think the Big 12, for the most part, is going to stick at 85 until we better understand what is going on with the rev share and how it actually shakes out. Adding 20 football scholarships is a pretty big hit for an athletic department. So I would imagine the Ohio States of the world will do it. But I think a lot of other schools, including power schools like the Big 12, will hold back on that. Any thoughts on the walk-on program?
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it makes sense, just what you said, to stay at 85 for a while and see how this revenue sharing thing plays itself out. Because you go out there and try to be willy-nilly and just say, well, we're going to do this. You don't even know what that number is going to be right now that you have to pay out every year. So, look, the thing about the program, how many guys can we talk about from Kansas State that were walk-ons or very last guys that get a scholarship that went on and played in the National Football League? I mean, it's countless guys. It's going to stink, but everybody's got to deal with it, unfortunately. Again, another NCAA just absolute blunder. I don't even know what they're trying to get out of this. I mean, I know what they've told us, but I don't understand the reasoning. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to have that in place. Like, what's the point? You're basically taking away, at least from my perspective, you're taking away the opportunity for guys that maybe, and let's just say you're a walk-on for 4 years and you never touched the field. That happens. Okay. Why would you take that joy away from somebody that just wants to go practice at Kansas State, to run out on the field at home games in a jersey? Why would you take that away from some kid? Again, I'm flabbergasted that they would even do that. It just doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
There's not like a single coach out there that I've seen say they're in favor of this. It's like Kleiman, every coach out there echoes Kleiman's message. They don't like it.
Yeah. And I'm with them. I don't like it either, but here we are. We got to deal with it. That's it for this, but we got one more question that'll happen in our VIP session, and it is from K-State Brats or Brats. Hopefully Brats, because they're delicious. Brats aren't delicious. Both Big BJ, excuse me, I got Big B. I got a Big B in there. Both Big J and Little J journalists and Big B journalists have shied away from comparing Kleiman's and Tang's programs, but how can anyone say they're not heading in the opposite directions right now? That is from K-State Brats, and we will answer that in the VIP session, which we're going to record right now because we are done with this one. Thanks for listening and watching the PowerCat Podcast.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.